Okay, so we've got our footage 3D tracked. I've got a solid in there on the ground, pretty much where I want to put my 3D text floating in space. It looks pretty good when I scrub through, so I think that's probably a pretty reasonable track. So I'm going to grab my text tool, which is just this T icon up the top of the interface. I'm just going to click in my interface, and I'm just going to type ARTA, because that's where we are. And I'm going to make this quite a big, solid, bold kind of font because it needs to be quite visible. This footage in particular is quite busy. There's trees and lots of detail. So if you want to change your text settings like the typeface and things, double-click the little T next to the layer that's been created. That will select all of your text. Now you can go into your character tab, and let's just make this bold and crank up the size of the text, and that will do me for now. Okay, so it's just a really basic bit of text. Now I'm using text for this exercise. You could use graphics that you've imported from somewhere else, whether it's photographs, Illustrator files, whatever, but we'll just use some text directly in After Effects. Okay, so this text is a 2D layer in After Effects. We need to make it a 3D layer that can sit in this 3D space. If I scrub through my timeline here, that text isn't connected to my 3D space at all. It's just sitting like an overlay over the top of everything. So we need to tell After Effects that this text is 3D and it sits in 3D space. So that's a really super easy thing to do. All we need to do is come to our layers in the composition, and there is a small icon. It looks like a perspective cube. If you can't see it next to the name of your layer, click the little toggle switches and modes button at the bottom of the composition window. And now we should see these things that, these little icons here control things like smoothing, motion blur, and you can also see, hopefully, there's a little perspective cube icon. We want to turn that on for our text layer. So that makes any layer 3D, it puts it into 3D space. And by 3D, I don't mean that it gives it depth. I mean that that layer, which is 2D text, is now sitting in a 3D space. After Effects is what we call a 2.5D program. It has a three-dimensional world that you can arrange layers in, but they can only be flat two-dimensional layers. So we call that 2.5D. Hopefully that's not confusing. Okay, so I've made my text a 3D layer. Once you've done that, it'll jump off to some crazy place. It'll disappear off, it might shrink, it might grow, but it will be somewhere else. But if I scrub through my timeline now, at least wherever it is, it kind of looks like it's sticking to the footage. My text looked like it's underground or something. Something's not right. But at least it's actually moving with my footage now, so that's a good thing. Now this is where our ground plane comes in, our solid that we made to represent where we want our graphics. We can use the position of that solid to position our 3D text. Because I know that solid that I've made, I can see it sitting on the path next to the tree. That's kind of where I want my graphics to be. So I'm going to copy and paste the position of my solid onto the position of my text. So if I go to my solid in the layers in our composition, hit P for position, I'm just going to select the word position by clicking on it and hit Command C, and that will copy the position of my solid. I'm then going to go to my text, hit P, click on position and Command V. So I've just copy pasted the position from one to the other. One thing you'll notice about our tracked solid is that yours could be different. Mine's actually at 0, 0, 0 at the origin already. So that was when we created our 3D track and stated that that was the origin and the ground plane, that's given this solid the values of the origin, 0, 0, 0. Anyway, my text is now in place. So now if I scrub through that, we'll do a quick preview. Okay, so this is good. It looks like my text is sitting there on a little purple blanket on the ground, and it's all connected to the footage. So that's looking good. Okay, now I know that my text is in the right place. It's 3D, it's sticking to the footage. Now I can actually just go and start to manipulate that text a little bit and get it looking a little bit more how I want it. Now, I want mine floating in space. It's almost like something you'd walk underneath. So I'm going to select my text layer. And one thing you'll notice when you select it, if you hit V on your keyboard to get your selection tool, so remember V is the shortcut in all the Adobe programs for the selection tool. With your text selected, you can see there's 3 arrows representing 3 axes. So I can hover my mouse over one of those axes. My mouse changes, it has the y-axis letter pop up, and I can just click and drag my text up in the air. If it moves super slowly, you can hold down the Shift key at the same time and it'll move much faster. So I'm just clicking and dragging on this y-axis arrow, and as I said, hold down the Shift key if you want it to move faster. I'm just going to put it up in the air, and I'm also going to scale this text up larger. Text in After Effects is a vector. It's not a bitmap image, it's a vector. So I can select my text in the composition, hit S for scale, scale it up, and it will stay nice and sharp.